the silver screen has featured some golden reads.
Look at this!
Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 fictional books from movies.
It has been my lifelong wish that this book would never be opened.
For this list, we'll be concentrating on books that exist within film universes.
This sort of thing ain't my bag, baby.
One book, Swedish-made penis enlarger pumps and me. This sort of thing is my bag, baby.
We're basing our choices on a mix of the book's design, its supposed content, as well as its importance to the plot of the movie it's in. But we will be excluding diaries.
Stan's Grail Diary.
Number 10. The Never-Ending Story, the Never-Ending Story franchise.
But it's only a story.
That's what I'm talking about.
Based on a German novel, these films chronicle the story of a boy who finds a fictional book of the same name that is both a plot element and the setting for much of the action.
What's that book about?
Oh, this is something special.
Set in the fantasy world appropriately named Fantasia, The Never-Ending Story is, as its title states, eternal. However, it is limited by people's imagination.
Every creature of it is a piece of the dreams and hopes of mankind.
Thus, the villain, who's called the Nothing, is representative of the unwillingness to believe in the fantastic and in one's dreams.
And you must hurry, Atreyu. The Nothing grows stronger every day.
Though it may be our first entry, The Never-Ending Story is unique in that its world is likely the most vast and wonderful of all the entries that follow.
Put it back! That book asks too much of you.
Number 9. Family of Geniuses, The Royal Tenenbaums.
She wrote a book on the subject.
Wes Anderson is attentive with every detail of his films, especially when it comes to what the French call mise en scène. And literary material is often a big part of the setting and surroundings in his movies.
Raleigh and Dudley went on a lecture tour to 11 universities in the promotion of their new book.
While there's a veritable library of made-up fiction and non-fiction to choose from in The Royal Tenenbaums, let alone the rest of Anderson's filmography, our pick had to go to this tell-all memoir by the matriarch of the Tenenbaum clan, Etheline Tenenbaum.
How long have you been a smoker? 22 years. Well, I think you should quit.
It's no secret that a majority of the family's dysfunction is derived from the favoritism and neglect practiced by her estranged husband, Royal.
What's wrong with you? Damn. Ethel. Are you crazy? Ethel, baby.
But Etheline's own high expectations for her children, of which her book is emblematic, have also contributed to their various neuroses and contribute to this book's significance.
The gentleman in the blue cardigan, please.
Number 8. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
The extraordinary story of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy begins very simply.
This film is based on a series of books in which we find the fictional book for which the entire franchise is named. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is an electronic guidebook that features contributions from many field researchers, such as Ford Prefect.
The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is a wholly remarkable book.
It's primarily used as a way of explaining things about the bizarre locales of the universe and the people that the series' protagonist, Arthur Dent, encounters.
My head is filled with questions, and I can assure you no answer to any one of them has ever brought me one iota of happiness.
In the film, these explanations are brought to life in the form of creative animations, as well as voiceovers narrated by Stephen Fry.
Space, says the introduction to The Hitchhiker's Guide, is big. Really big.
In a world where things like space travel can result in you becoming a sofa, a little explanation, especially when it's entertaining, goes a long way.
Ford? Yes. I think I'm a sofa. I know how you feel.
Number 7. Isle of Naboombu, Bedknobs and Broomsticks.
The Isle of Naboombu does not exist.
Oh, it does too!
The Isle of Naboombu is a children's story, which sets up the memorable middle portion of this musical fantasy that brings together live action and animation. Found by Paul in Professor Emilius Brown's house, it details the existence of the mysterious titular island that Miss Price, Brown, Paul, and his siblings travel to while in search of the medallion that's supposedly inscribed with a spell. But this isn't any ordinary children's book, as it appears to be prophetic and depicts events that happen to the group.
You got the words for these spells out of some old book, you say?
Well, more or less, I changed them round a bit.
It also contains the spell they were looking for all along, which suggests that it may have some magic of its own.
I still haven't mastered that spell.
Number 6. Mr. Babadook, the Babadook.
His name is Mr. Babadook, and this is his book.
The only pop-up book on our list, this mysterious children's story introduces us to the title monster, the Babadook, and sets the stage for the psychological horror film.
Insisted on talking to this bloody Babadook thing all day, just talking to the air. It freaked me out.
Like several of our other entries, this book is alive, but not exactly in the same way as the rest. The pop-up monster torments anyone who becomes aware of its existence, grows stronger the more someone tries to deny it's real, and is capable of possession, making for a surprisingly scary and inventive horror creature.
I don't want you to go away.
Critics have also claimed that the Babadook is representative of grief, since the protagonist, a widowed mother, shuns reminders of her husband's death, which adds to the book's complexity as a symbol in the film. Number 5. The Misery series, Misery.
You're just another lying old dirty birdie.
Fiction of all kinds can elicit fanaticism. Misery, a film based on the book of the same name by Stephen King, is one such example.
She can't be dead. Misery Chastain cannot be dead.
In both the book and the movie, Paul Sheldon is the writer of a series of romance novels starring a character named Misery Chastain. Annie Wilkes is his deranged #1 fan that ends up rescuing him from a car wreck.
My name is Annie Wilkes.
I'm #1 fan.
Yes, that's right. I'm also a nurse.
Using her power over him in his injured state, she forces the novelist to write a return for Misery, whom Paul killed in his latest novel.
You're gonna write a new novel. Your greatest achievement ever. Misery's Return.
Kathy Bates' Oscar-winning depiction of Annie's obsession has ensured that the Misery series will remain a cautionary example of fandom gone too far.
I'll take good care of you.
I'm your #1 fan.
Number 4. The Philosophy of Time Travel, Donnie Darko.
Philosophy of Time Travel. Roberta Sparrow?
Written by ex-teacher Roberta Sparrow, who, during the timeline of the film, is an apparently doddering old crone, The Philosophy of Time Travel is a book detailing, surprise surprise, time travel, which is integral to Donnie Darko's plot.
And there are chapters in that book that describe the stuff I've been seeing, and it can't just be a coincidence.
After reading the book, Donnie comes to understand why so many strange things are happening to him, which allows him to eventually accept his fatal destiny. However, very little of the book's contents are actually revealed to the audience in the theatrical cut, but the director's cut, which came out 3 years after the movie's release, contains excerpts of the philosophy and science-heavy text, and makes the supernatural psychological drama significantly easier to understand.
I've reached the end of your book, and there's so many things that I need to ask you.
Number 3. Handbook for the Recently Deceased, Beetlejuice.
Handbook for the Recently Deceased.
Deceased.
This guide for spirits, ghosts, and other beings new to the afterlife appears upon Barbara and Adam Maitland's return to their former home, which they're now destined to haunt following their deaths. However, the book is not exactly user-friendly, as the Maitlands soon discover.
This book reads like stereo instructions. Listen to this.
Many of the couple's struggles in the film are due to the book's impenetrable instructions and the generally problematic bureaucracy of the afterlife.
This book is so stupid, I can't understand anything in it.
However, the denseness of its pages becomes the least of the Maitland's problems when an unfortunate living person attempts to materialize them using directions found in the book, the unintended side effect of which is the rotting of their spiritual forms. As fate would have it, their only hope becomes the manic charlatan that gives the film its name.
Okay, have you been studying the manual?
Well, we tried.
The intermediate interface chapter on haunting says it all.
Number 2. Gray's Sports Almanac, Complete Sports Statistics 1950 to 2000. Back to the Future Part 2.
Gray's Sports Almanac.
An almanac seems like an odd thing to drive a film's plot, but drive it this one does. And not always on roads.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
The sports almanac in question contains sports statistics and scores from 1950 through 2000, which, in one timeline, allows the McFly family's nemesis, Biff Tannen, to become a gambling kingpin who turns their town into a dystopian hellhole. Though we were tempted to include A Match Made in Space, the cheesy sci-fi novel written by Marty's dad. That book was more a result of the film's plot, rather than the object around which it revolves.
He says this book will tell me the outcome of every sporting event till the end of the century.
By contrast, it's only by destroying the almanac that Marty and Doc are able to set things right.
Doc, I got it in my hand!
Burn it! Which demonstrates its importance in Part 2.
Doc! That newspaper changed!
Before we reveal our #1 pick, here are some honorable mentions.
Chapter 1. You can call me Fingerling. It's not my real name. It came from a book I read as a child.
In time, the brothers reached a river too treacherous to pass. But being learned in the magical arts, the three brothers simply waved their wands and made a bridge.
Dragon classifications. Strike class, fear class, mystery class. Thunderdrum. This reclusive dragon inhabits sea caves and dark tide pools.
#1.
Necronomicon Ex Mortis.
The Evil Dead franchise.
Oh, God. Look at this.
Bound in human skin and inked in human blood, this grimoire, or book of magic, is the source from which much of the titular Evil Dead of this franchise originates. And is likely inspired by the similarly named fictional book invented by H.P. Lovecraft.
It deals with demons, demon resurrection, and those forces which roam the forest.
Reciting from the Book of the Dead usually results in terrors being unleashed upon the unsuspecting reader, or even anyone listening to a recording of someone reading it. With the face-like impressions on its cover, you could safely say that the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, also known as the Nacharam Demonto, has a bit more personality than most of the entries on our list. Given that it's the catalyst for nearly every event in the Evil Dead universe, as well as one of modern cult horror's most notorious antagonists, then it should come as no surprise that it's also our #1 pick.
Groovy.
Do you agree with our list?
Yeah.
What's your favorite fictional book from film?
This thing reads like stereo instructions.
For more top 10s booked daily, be sure to subscribe to WatchMojo.com.
The wheels of drama never stop turning.
Okay, maybe not.
Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we'll be counting down our picks for another top 10 video game controversies.
Winning big, money, 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 exclamation, exclamation, woo woo! Kids, come on, anyone can play of any age.
For this list, we take a look at events or incidents in the industry that generated a significant amount of discussion, opinion, and of course outrage. And not broader ongoing cultural debates like representation, corporate meddling, ethics, etc., etc. Number 10, Bully.
You seem to have an aptitude for senseless destruction, Jimmy.
Despite evidence linking games and real-life violence being contradictory at best, controversy is never far behind any Rockstar release, as politicians and other activists often raise their concerns.
There's a real simple solution here. That is, show me the game. Give me the game and I'll play it, and I'll let them know whether or not I or anybody else has a problem with it.
Glorification of bullying was the target this time, as one man labeled the school-based title a Columbine simulator. Calls for bans were widespread, with one even being put into effect in Brazil. Yet, regular gamers were content to wait until it was actually released before adding their voices.
And every bullying expert who's aware of this game has predicted that this game will lead to real-world violence in schools.
The final product certainly contains fighting, don't get us wrong. Yet, in-game it's only legitimized when you're standing up to a bully, with any other serial misbehavior strictly being punished. Many still couldn't be satisfied, however, and many players accused them of remaining intentionally blind to the game's considerable creative achievements.
You could do a little public service, it'll do you good. Go mow the lawn. Isn't there a law against slave labor?
Number 9, Digital Homicide versus Jim Sterling and Steam users.
Seem to think you didn't put any effort in yourselves. For example, the blood spatter that shows damage on the game. Seems to have been ripped from Google Images to the point where all of the artifacts from the, I'm assuming you used PNG images, are still visible.
This debacle began in 2014 when YouTube personality Jim Sterling released a scathing review of Digital Homicide's FPS, The Slaughtering Grounds, which is, by the way, a standard procedure for many YouTube personalities.
This isn't in early access, by the way. This is a finished product. Just thought I'd point that out.
Instead of taking his criticism in stride, the company abusively fired back before filing a $15 million lawsuit against Sterling for slander. And of course, this opened the floodgates for backlash from Steam reviewers. So what does Digital Homicide do in response to that? They file another lawsuit against 100 anonymous users while also requesting a subpoena to reveal their personal information.
The latest lawsuit, filed by Digital Homicide co-founders, the Romine brothers, is a personal injury lawsuit titled Romine versus Unknown Party.
That's the internet. The internet is the unknown party.
This in turn led to Steam removing all of Digital Homicide's games from their online store. And now without any means of income, the company had to drop the latter case. I bet you guys are really regretting digging that hole any deeper, eh?
I'm not your everyday moron, I'm Jim Sterling. That's my name now. That's my new name.
Number 8, paying for user-created mods.
Extra Apple mod for a reasonable $29.99. That's right, now you can have an apple on a table.
It might have been resolved about as quickly as it blew up. But for 4 tumultuous days, gamers were sure upset.
Mod creators that choose to charge for their mods are only receiving 25% of the earnings, and the rest are going to Valve and Bethesda.
Put into force by Valve and Bethesda, the concept in its rawest form would afford creators the freedom to make a living out of something they previously had to rely on donations to support.
Gamers were also pissed off because they saw it as an assault on the tradition of free mods.
However, the idea was flawed upon launch and soon got torn apart by irate Skyrim players. Copyright and pricing issues ran rampant, while many felt that 25 to 75% revenue split between the developer would allow them to release subpar games reliant on cheap mod fixes.
Valve first launched those last spring, killed them within just a few days after the community fusrodded the whole project. The move was widely panned, resulting in Skyrim being bombed with negative reviews.
It also, probably most importantly, spat in the face of the essence of modding culture. But at least Valve weren't too stubborn to ignore player feedback, and they reversed their decision.
Valve and Bethesda decided, you know what, we're gonna cancel that whole paid mod thing and, on Skyrim and just pretend like it kind of never happened.
Number 7, Xbox One's pre-launch DRM policies.
And I've never been more excited than I am today.
There may be a time when always online and all digital features are the norm. And in that sense, Microsoft were ahead of their time. However, the new features that were being touted seemed far too drastic for the average consumer.
People who aren't able to get some form of connectivity is called Xbox 360.
Microsoft's new policy required that their new console always needed to be online, while at the same time providing a convoluted system for how to share games with friends or sell them once you used them. Sony capitalized on this outrage at their E3 presentation in spectacular fashion, winning over most of the gaming community and forcing Microsoft to backtrack on these limitations. But the damage was done, and the predicted console war became a console massacre.
In addition, PlayStation 4 disc-based games don't need to be connected online to play.
Number 6, Nintendo Creators Program.
Nintendo claiming of ad revenue will only drive content creators away rather than embrace the free publicity those videos provide.
Nintendo and the YouTube community haven't got along ever since the legendary company removed monetized videos featuring their intellectual property, some saying that they abused YouTube's notoriously exploitable copyright system in the process.
As far as I can tell, there's no distinction between whether you're a critic or an entertainer or a reviewer, whatever you call yourself. Nintendo wants you to shake hands and make compromises on your coverage if you're uploading game footage to YouTube.
That relationship deteriorated even further upon the announcement of Nintendo's own scheme, allowing creators to use whitelisted games as long as they, get this, gave them 40% of the revenue.
Everybody but Nintendo wants the content creator to keep the lion's share.
Compared to other development companies who embrace the free exposure that huge YouTube personalities give their games, Nintendo showed that they really wanted a slice of that pie while maintaining sway to monitor what was said about their assets.
Unless your review is just you standing in front of a camera with zero footage of the game, you must obey Nintendo's rules.
Nintendo argued that this was to protect their brand, but many YouTube personalities, including PewDiePie, have stated that they just won't showcase Nintendo's games anymore. Bummer.
Do you think they're gonna come after us for our drunk Mario Party?
No, we're not on their radar. We haven't done that yet.
Okay, well, but I mean, we might.
It was Mario Kart and Smash Brothers.
So we'll owe them.
But we were drunk, so you don't remember.
40%?
Number 5, Middle-earth, Shadow of Mordor branded deal.
PewDiePie and other YouTubers took money from Warner Brothers for positive game reviews. Now that's fucked up.
YouTube personalities can engage with their audience in a fashion that the usual gaming press can never achieve. the personal nature of their content makes them ideal vehicles for promoting certain products.
There was a concerted effort to not give out a code unless you could abide by terms that would control your content in a number of overbearing ways.
It's a great form of marketing in theory, but it becomes problematic when what they say is contractually controlled and the figure in question doesn't disclose that their content is being sponsored.
So my apologies. I will not be able to tell you about the branding system, but I can tell you about everything else.
Terms from a marketing firm representing Shadow of Middle-earth, Played Social, contained such limitations, asserting that no bugs could be shown and that viewers must be positively encouraged to make a purchase.
I think even in the world of professional video game journalism, there is some amount of punishment for being, giving a negative review to something.
Several YouTubers who accepted the offer said that such stipulations were negotiable, but others denounced it as a shady method of manipulating public impressions by exploiting the platform's independent perception. The irony of all this was that Shadow of Mordor really kicked ass and didn't need this kind of marketing to begin with, although the backlash would have definitely been worse if it had turned out to be hot garbage.
Videos must include discussion of the Nemesis system. This really should take up the bulk of the focus, such as how different the orcs are, how vivid their personalities and dialogue are.
Number 4, No Man's Sky marketing and release.
The Advertising Standards Authority in England is exploring whether this game is responsible for false advertising.
This space-based survival title was one of the most hyped games ever for one reason: Sean Murray and his extravagant promises.
A little bit like Journey or Dark Souls, we want players to have a sense that there are other people playing the game at the same time.
Whether his claims constitute a deliberate attempt to mislead consumers or was simply reckless optimism from a small, inexperienced developer is incredibly difficult to ascertain. Part of the problem is Hello Games' relative silence in response to players' complaints about missing features and numerous glitches, allowing those same commenters to dominate the conversation, thereby forming a complete narrative without one side of the story.
Murray wrote in a series of tweets that No Man's Sky is not a multiplayer game. Please don't go in looking for that experience.
Until the company speaks up, any words defending them are purely speculative. We can only hope that the absence of discussion means that they're working on delivering the game that players had envisioned before it's too late.
No Man's Sky captured our imaginations, and in our mind's eye, we all envisioned what the experience was going to be like before we had it. And sometimes, as the old saying goes, you want to sort of shoot for the moon because even if you miss, you'll land among the stars.
Number 3, CSGO Lotto.
Apparently, these two have been allegedly faking gambling and also faking winning huge amounts of cash.
First exposed by a YouTuber named Honor the Call, YouTube personalities T Martin and Pro Syndicate are alleged to have hidden their ownership of a skin gambling site while promoting it to their partly underage audience, potentially having the power to rig the betting videos that they made.
T Martin Enterprises wins something from CSGO Lotto and Trevor pays himself. It's that simple.
Instead of remaining tight-lipped, T. Martin somewhat insincerely apologized, stating his ownership of the company was on public record, but this really only served to worsen public opinion towards them. FTC regulations require clear disclosure in order to avoid deceptive advertising, although, as another video from H3H3 Productions showed, that was definitely not always the case.
And we found this new site called CSGO Lotto, so I'll link it down in the description if you guys want to check it out. But we were betting on it today, and I won a pot of like $69 or something like that, so it's a pretty small pot, but it was like the coolest feeling ever.
Number 2, Jeff Gerstmann gets fired.
Some really neat ideas are buried deep in there, but you're going to have to do a whole lot of digging, more than you'll probably want to do.
You may not know the messy details, but you've no doubt heard about this tale that is synonymous with the questionable ethics that many feel pervade gaming journalism.
Kane and Lynch Dead Men. Which, heck of a game.
After Gertzmann's non-disclosure agreement ended in 2012, we finally got a satisfying conclusion to the 5-year-old rumors. Following Gertzmann's mediocre reviews of games like Kane and Lynch Dead Men, unhappy publishers such as Eidos and Sony threatened to withdraw funds they paid to promote on GameSpot.
That is when I was called into a room and let go. Was shortly after Thanksgiving in 2007.
Under this pressure, the site's inexperienced advertising team crumpled and showed Gerstmann the door. Despite many still writing such situations off as a tolerated reality in the field, the majority supported the long-serving journalist for retaining his sincerity even as others criticized him for his divisive views.
Yeah. That game was not a fantastic game. Nope. So I said as much, and a lot of this stuff kind of came up again.
Before we reveal our top pick, let's take a look at some honorable mentions.
Alina, Christy, Lee, Alyssa, Lars, Jack X, Brian, Mega Man, and fucking Pac-Man.
He's asking if they can drink water out of empty Mountain Dew cans. No drinks are allowed on the stage except for Mountain Dew or water.
Coffee wasn't even allowed.
No, people were drinking coffee in the corners.
Number 1, Konami versus Kojima.
Mr. Kojima had every intention of being with us tonight, but unfortunately he was informed by a lawyer representing Konami just recently that he would not be allowed to travel to tonight's awards ceremony.
As one of video game development's true visionary icons, Konami couldn't have picked a worse person to allegedly treat poorly, particularly as they moved to the unpopular mobile-first orientation. Speculation about Kojima's position in the company began when his name was taken off of the Phantom Pain branding in March 2015, and in the months after, fans pieced together vague information pointing towards his imminent departure from the company.
Sources from within the studio revealed that Hideo Kojima, who has spearheaded the Metal Gear franchise at Konami for nearly 30 years, is expected to leave Kojima Productions in December following the release of Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain.
Kojima's 3-decade tenure at the company was officially ended in December of that year, with rumors indicating that Konami had grown tired of his lavish development budgets. Although there's still shade being thrown by both sides, Konami banned him from attending the Game Awards, so Kojima drank their tears, somewhat literally. It seems that the split was the best for everyone involved.
So we want you to know, Hideo, that we're thinking of you. And we miss you. We hope to see you at the Game Awards 2016.
Do you agree with our list? Which gaming controversies did you follow closely? If you didn't see a topic you thought should be on here, be sure to check out our first list on the top 10 video game controversies. And for more not-so-controversial top 10s published every day, be sure to subscribe to WatchMojo.com.
Yes, a little rough around the edges, but you're a diamond, boy. A diamond.
Thank you, sir.
Get out your calculator and unsuspend your disbelief.
At around 4:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, our satellites detected a storm approaching the Ares 3 mission site on Mars.
Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we're counting down our picks for another top 10 instances of bogus movie science.
You would enter a reality. Irrelevant.
For this list, we're looking at more films that take liberties with their science by including instances when they try to pass off science fiction as science fact, where the science doesn't make sense, or where the science is changed to serve the plot. If you think we missed something on this list, be sure to check out our first list of the top 10 movies with bogus science.
Now pay attention, because this could save your life. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about.
Number 10. Using humans as an energy source. The Matrix.
At the time, they were dependent on solar power, and it was believed that they would be unable to survive without an energy source as abundant as the sun.
At the center of the Matrix trilogy are people living in a simulated version of the present, as their bodies are used as power sources for robots in the actual present year of 2199. The problem with this is that it makes no thermodynamic sense.
The human body generates more bioelectricity than a 120-volt battery and over 25,000 BTUs of body heat.
The robots would be better off burning the food they give to the humans as a power source than feeding them and using whatever energy the humans produce.
No. I don't believe it.
The machines may have subdued the human race in this film's reality, but we can all take solace in the fact that they know even less about energy efficiency than we do.
Human beings are a disease, a cancer of this planet. You are a plague.
Number 9. Getting from the Hubble Space Telescope to the International Space Station. Gravity.
Hubble telescope engaged. Upgrade fully functional.
Although Gravity tried to paint itself as a more realistic space saga, it still made its fair share of errors. We don't have time to mention all of them, but the most obvious is Sandra Bullock's ability to relatively easily traverse from the Hubble Space Telescope to the ISS, even though the Hubble orbits over 100 kilometers higher than the ISS.
Clear skies with the chance of satellite debris.
The scientific consensus is that traveling that distance with only a jetpack would not be possible. Among the other inaccuracies in the film are Bullock's sexy space attire, the ISS debris reappearing every 90 minutes, and her being able to get to Tiangong 1 from the ISS. Great visuals, though.
Tiangong is approximately 100 kilometers to the west, and I am off its course by about 13 degrees.
Number 8. Ant-Man's inconsistent weight. Ant-Man.
Ants can lift objects 50 times their weight. They build, farm, they cooperate with each other.
Admittedly, shrinking to insect proportions requires some suspension of disbelief to start with. But our beef is with Ant-Man's inconsistent weight.
The ultimate secret weapon. An Ant-Man.
The Pym suit shrinks Ant-Man by bringing his atoms closer together, not reducing them in size or number. So he should theoretically retain the same weight when he's teeny as when he's a normal-sized man. But throughout the film, we see this weight vary. Sometimes he's incredibly light, other times he's incredibly dense.
40 years ago, I created a formula that altered atomic relative distance.
Huh?
I learned how to change the distance between atoms. That's what powers the suit. That's why it works.
Another scientific faux pas is his ability to go subatomic, since atoms are also incredibly dense. So Ant-Man, who's composed of trillions of atoms, shouldn't be able to become smaller than a single atom. It just doesn't add up.
Oh no.
Number 7. The microwave emitter, Batman Begins.
The ship was carrying a prototype weapon. It's a microwave emitter. It's designed for desert warfare, but it looks like somebody turned it on.
While Christopher Nolan's goal for the Dark Knight series was to make it more realistic, he didn't pull it off without a few scientific missteps.
It uses focused microwaves to vaporize the enemy's water supply.
The problem we're concerned with is the microwave transmitter used by Scarecrow in his effort to evaporate Gotham's water supply and render the fear toxin airborne. Not only would the emitter be unable to penetrate the steel of the train car, it would also certainly not have been able to instantly boil the water in the pipes, especially given its size and how quickly the train was moving.
Rumor was they tested dispersing water-based chemical agents into the air, but isn't that illegal?
There are simply too many obstacles for this to have worked the way it's depicted in the film.
Earl just fired me for asking too many questions about it.
Number 6. Neutrinos melting the Earth's core. 2012.
In ancient times, the Mayan people were the first civilization to discover that this planet had an expiration date.
If you can ignore the goofy premise where the Mayan calendar actually predicted the end of civilization, then there's plenty of equally goofy science to enjoy in this Roland Emmerich disaster film.
They're heating up the Earth's core. They suddenly act like microwaves.
Of course, the most notable of 2012's bogus plot points is that the sun reaches its maximum output and starts sending out neutrinos that are somehow able to heat the Earth's core to its boiling point and cause untold mayhem.
Our sun will begin to emit such extreme amounts of radiation, those little bastards are called neutrinos, that the core of the Earth will melt. That's the inside part of the orange.
The problem there is that even if neutrinos could somehow magically do that, their presence would start wreaking havoc on the surface long before they started heating up the core.
That's impossible.
Number 5. Curving a bullet. Wanted.
You want me to shoot through Wilbur?
I want you to curve the bullet.
Wanted is filled with flashy stunts and doesn't really try to stick to the rules of physics. That's most apparent in the iconic bullet curving that's depicted in the film.
If no one told you that bullets flew straight, and I gave you a gun and told you to hit the target, what would you do? Let your instincts guide you.
Just by rotating their arms as they fire their guns, the assassins are able to alter their bullets' trajectories so they spiral around bystanders and hit bad guys. Unfortunately, the science of ballistics doesn't work that way. While bullets do fly in a curved trajectory, this is a long parabolic arc formed by gravitational pull, not by Angelina Jolie flicking her wrist.
You kick his ass!
Guns are actually designed to make bullets fly as straight as possible, and no matter how hard you swing your arm, you're not gonna change simple physics.
Crazy.
Number 4. Martian Sandstorm, The Martian.
What is she thinking? She knows the infrared can't get through a sandstorm.
Much like the film Gravity, The Martian takes a relatively realistic approach to science fiction. Also like Gravity, it still made some pretty big mistakes.
Anchor him with the rover!
The most noticeable of which is the windstorm that maroons Mark Watney on Mars in the first place. While there are slight winds on the red planet, there's nowhere near enough atmospheric density to cause the massive storm depicted in the film.
Commander, you need to get back to the ship now!
The movie also fails to show how the astronauts deal with the heightened levels of radiation in space and on the surface of Mars. However, despite the inaccuracies, the film still does a good job of sticking to scientific principles in other areas, such as Watney's botanical pursuits and the orbital dynamics of the spacecraft.
We start accelerating immediately to preserve velocity and gain even more. We don't intercept with Earth at all, but we come close enough to get a gravity assist and adjust course.
Number 3. Volcano spontaneously forming in LA. Volcano.
Well, we now have a name for this crisis. It is, according to the U.S. Geological Survey, a volcano.
Volcanoes can be one of the most devastating natural disasters. Whether it's the lava flows or plumes of hot ash, they're not messing around. But they are something most people, including the population of Los Angeles, don't have to worry about.
Lava? Here in LA.
But Volcano, which is set in LA, shows a volcano spontaneously forming under the city and wreaking havoc. The only problem with that, the volcano forms under the San Andreas Fault, which is a transform fault and not a subduction fault, where volcanoes commonly occur.
Oh, God, why don't we just do some more underground blasting and find out if there's a fault line down there?
No, let's do it your way.
My way.
So, while it may be a captivating idea, the citizens of LA should probably be more concerned with realistic threats, like earthquakes and water shortages.
I'm sure you're aware of this, that our continents sit on tectonic plates. Great big rafts floating over an ocean of molten rock.
Yeah.
When they shift like they did this morning, we get an earthquake, okay?
Number 2. Surviving a nuclear explosion in a fridge. Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Sure, great! Don't wait for me!
Minus 15 seconds.
Indiana Jones has a long history of pulling off death-defying stunts, and most of them haven't drawn too much scientific inquiry. However, in the 4th installment, Indy decides to try his luck waiting out a nuclear test inside a refrigerator.
3, 2, 1, 0.
In reality, this type of event would not have been survivable. Even if the fridge were able to protect Indy from the heat and radiation, the force of the blast that sent the fridge flying away would have resulted in severe trauma. Maybe Indiana Jones should stick to obstacles that can be overcome with his bullwhip.
Indy, thank God. Don't you know it's dangerous to climb into a refrigerator? Those things can be death traps.
Before we unveil our number 1 pick, here are some honorable mentions.
For a little extra, we offer the cryonic union of science and entertainment.
What's wrong?
I just had a terrible thought. What if this is a dream?
Well, then kiss me quick before you wake up.
I want you to stay here on this one, okay? Because you can still get infected. And I can't.
Number 1. Sound in Space. Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope.
We're in position. I'm going to cut across the axis and try and draw their fire.
It may have become one of the most iconic and successful film franchises of all time, but that doesn't mean it didn't make some glaring errors. However, today we're focusing on the sound-filled space battles throughout the series.
There's a lot of fire coming from the right side of that deflection tower.
The creators of Star Wars probably knew that sound doesn't travel in a vacuum, but filming a stark, silent dogfight in space would not have been as fun to watch.
Watch yourself, increase speed full throttle.
While some movies have gotten this particular detail right, space scenes with sound have been common in many sci-fi films since Star Wars. The results? Epic aerial battles. It may not be the best point of reference for anyone studying space.
Have you not? What? Yahoo!
Do you agree with our list? What movies do you think have bogus science?
Mitch, I don't know how to describe this, but the tarpons themselves are on fire and they're right now spilling out onto Wilshire Boulevard.
For more enlightening top 10s published every day, be sure to subscribe to WatchMojo.com.
Dave, this conversation can serve no purpose anymore. Goodbye.
Al? Al?